Hi, I'm Dave Atkinson, and welcome to Life on the Strait. This 16th installment in the Epic Remodel series covers the 3-week period of February 2nd through February 22nd of 2020. The electrician got an early start to this period, coming over on Sunday to do more work, bringing wiring down from the attic through the new home run wall we chose that is further away from the bed. It continued through the floor to the basement where it angled over to meet up with the panels, and he connected quite a bit of the wiring to the panels as well. On Monday, Frank's painter of choice, Class Act Painting, joined in the fun to stain the knotty pine for the front deck soffit that was stored in the basement. He built a drying rack for the planks as well. We placed an order for 6 Nest Protect smoke and carbon monoxide detectors and worked with the electrician to make sure that he had wiring to all of the locations they would be mounted at. The electrician also worked with us on replacement LED track lighting in the sunroom, along with addressing various ceiling fan questions we had. On Wednesday, Amy and I drove to Seattle for a 3-month CT scan to see if I was still free of cancer. This scan was approximately 9 months after my final radiation treatment, and it came back okay. Our gamble to take a leap of faith and proceed with our remodeling plans was looking good. On the exterior of the house, the crew was finishing with a Tyvek installation to the remaining gable areas, and they also installed wooden bottom trim that the lowest HardiPlank pieces would attach to. They installed trim on the wall edges of the house, as well as around the garage door opening. Inside, they installed the second slider next to the large 14-foot slider, completing our glass wall. Standing out in the future kitchen area, it was quite the treat to look through that wall and out through the sunroom glass to the Strait below, or Strait beyond, I should say. Compare it to how that wall used to look like. Frank picked up some samples of the concrete pavers and supporting plastic pylons that would make up the surface of our new front deck. He had also fabricated metal screens that would go behind the new gable vents to keep the insects out. By the end of the day on Friday, the crew had begun installing the HardiPlank siding on the west end of the house. It was so nice to see that new siding go up. For the next week, outside siding installation kept the crew busy while the electrician continued wiring the house. We thought about a possible future water feature in front of the new front deck, and the electrician said he would provision for it. The fireplace received a little more attention, with a fabricated metal panel sealing off the chimney and heat pipes from the front, with more framing in front of the panel to accept the lag bolts from the TV wall stand. The electrician was also figuring out where to place his cables and power for the TV and soundbar. There was still old ceiling sheetrock that made up the roof of the laundry room, and the electrician cut out where the can lights would go, along with installing the fixtures in the attic area, plus he installed the ceiling vent fan in that area. Amy and I drove over to visit Jeff the cabinet guy, as the sample cabinet poles had arrived, and we wanted to look at them to be sure that was what we wanted. At the end of the second week, the crew had installed the gable vent on the west end of the house and sided all but the gable section. They had also sided about half of the east garage end wall. A state inspector showed up and passed all of Lincoln's electrical work. Tuesday of the third week was another key inspection, house framing. Leading up to that, the crew continued with the siding installation, and inside they used fire-blocking foam to seal up the gaps inside of the walls where wires and pipes passed through the wood. No surprise, given Frank's attention to detail, the inspection went off without a hitch. The next day, the insulation contractor arrived for 2 days of work. By the time they left, the interior of the house was transformed from one where you looked through the stud walls to one that now had defined spaces. One reason was that we chose to have sound-deadening insulation in the bedroom walls, between the bathrooms, and between the great room and the master bedroom. The contractor also insulated the basement ceiling and the underside of the rear sunroom deck, which would soon get a soffit to hold it in place as well as to keep the critters out. They would return later on, once the sheetrock was up, to blow insulation into the attic. Lincoln returned on Thursday to take care of a few punch list items, and he also removed the ceiling fans from the sunroom as well as from the guest bedroom. He said that he removed old receptacles as well as low voltage wiring from the 2 small bedrooms. Lincoln also made changes to the stairwell lighting that led to the basement, replacing the dated hanging by a long chain type receptacle with a can light in the ceiling. And he wired all of the light receptacles throughout the basement so that we could control them with a switch at the top and bottom of the stairs. A second switch would turn on the stairway can light as well as a basement light above the foot of the stairs. In the past, the basement lights were individually controlled by chains dangling from each receptacle, so having them all wired to switches would be a nice improvement. We're not sure of the exact date, but by now Amy and I had concluded that it would make no sense to have what would essentially be a brand new house with a newly designed front deck, but still retain the old and rotted rear deck. So we asked Frank to see if he could come up with a design for the rear deck that used the same concrete pavers as the front deck. He sent us the first draft of a rear deck elevation for us to look at on Thursday. I had also asked my old friend Rod if he could help us with certain deck elements. Rod was a master craftsman when it came to metal fabrication, and I gave his contact information to Frank. Because of the salt air, we were looking for stainless steel materials. Frank told us that he and Rod had been talking about how to go about creating what would turn out to be 2 awesome decks. By the end of Friday, the crew had installed about half of the soffit planks below the front deck's new roof, giving us a taste of the huge visual upgrade that was to come. So that wraps up 3 more weeks of substantial progress for our Epic Remodel project. Thank you for watching Life on the Strait, and if you'd like to follow this story as it unfolds, please consider subscribing, which is free.